The text in Deuteronomy will be the focus of our sermonic moment. Deuteronomy chapter 4, one verse. One verse. That verse reads in the New Revised Standard Version, "But take care and watch yourselves closely, so as neither to forget the things that your eyes have seen, nor to let them slip from your mind all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and to your children's children." Let me read it once again. "But take care and watch yourselves closely, so as neither to forget the things that your eyes have seen, nor to let them slip from your mind all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your grandchildren." The word of the Lord for the people of God. Thanks be to God. I want to reflect for a few moments, the few moments that I have, from the subject. 3 books, a song, and a testimony. 3 books, a song, and a testimony. One of the byproducts of the pandemic and our commitment to hold the service to about a 1-hour period, maybe with 10 minutes additionally, is that we've had to learn how to reduce our sermons to about 20 minutes. So 3 books and a song. Last Sunday, I said I wanted to return to the theme of don't forget who you are, or put another way, the way I would put it today is remember who you are and remember whose you are. Remember who you are. Last week I referenced the great play, A Raising in the Sun, that was turned into a movie, and Sidney Poitier played the role of Walter Lee, and I talked extensively about Walter Lee in the movie Raising in the Sun. And I referenced when Walter Lee was about to go off the rails, Big Mama Lena said, "I come from 4 generations of slaves and sharecroppers. And ain't nobody, none of us ever took money from somebody who didn't think we should be walking the earth." She was trying to remind Walter Lee to remember who he was and who he came from. And Big Mama was echoing the words that we hear in this text from the ancient prophet Moses, the one who had led the people through the wilderness for 40 years. And as Moses was preparing to die, as they stood on the plains of Moab on the eastern side of the River Jordan, about to cross over to Canaan land, as he was about to die, Moses gave 3 speeches. And a summary of all of those speeches was, remember who you are. Remember who brought you. Remember who led you by a pillar of clouds by day and a pillar of cloud by night. Remember who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Remember who brought you out of Egyptian slavery. Remember, and when you remember to tell your children and your grandchildren so that they would also remember. He said, don't forget. Don't get away from the story, the narrative, the God of our weary years, the God of our restless tears. And so I want to spend a few minutes emphasizing and reminding us once again, and the great author, Gloria Naylor, who is well known for, I think, the 5 or 6 books. A lot of people know about her book, The Women of Brewster Place and Linden Hills, but her third book was Mama Day. Her third book was Mama Day, a book about the people of Willow Island, Georgia, Sea Island, off the coasts of Georgia and South Carolina. And in that community, the matriarch, Mama Day. The matriarch was Mama Day. The central character in Mama Day is Coco. Coco is one of, actually they're a Gullah community in the Sea Islands, and the central character is Coco. Coco went away to New York and found a man she got married to, and they came back to visit, to learn and to introduce him. And the other character in that book was Coco's cousin, who went away to school. He left the island and went to the mainland. He went to the big city of Atlanta, and he went to school at Clark University, and there he learned sociology and archaeology and anthropology, and he became a field researcher, and he decided to go back to Willow Island so he could do some research. And in doing research, he wanted to do research by taping the words of the elders talking to the people on the island. There were some mysterious things that had happened on that island, and so he kept asking questions, and finally somebody said, well, if you really want to go, no, you need to go to Mama Day. You need to go to Mama Day and ask Mama Day. She'll tell you. And he went to Mama Day, he took his tape recorder, and he asked her if he could tape her voice, and Mama Day said, well, when he started asking questions, he said, well, boy, if you just go down to the cemetery and you sit under that tree, you'll learn everything you need to know about what it is you're asking about. If you just know where to go and how to listen to the voices of your ancestors, they will tell you all you need to know. He had gone away to school. He had learned about the scientific method. He had learned about archaeological research, and he thought he'd go back and do field research. And then Mama Day said, all you got to do is go down to that old cemetery where your ancestors are buried, and they'll tell you everything you need to know. Everything. Always remember who you are and where you come from. Remember those memories. Now, we should acknowledge that the past is not always easy to want to remember. It's not even always easy to want to talk about those experiences. And in fact, it is very clear, even when I was growing up, some things my mama would say, well, we don't talk about those things. And many of us grew up in families where when we asked about, well, what happened in the South? Why did they leave? They said, well, I don't want to talk about those things, because there are some experiences that are so brutal and so horrible and so negative that people just want to forget. You just want to forget them. You don't want to have to talk about them. But one of the things that happened in my own journey was that in the course of research, I discovered that it was necessary for me to go back and to hear the words of those ancestors, to listen to those ancestors. I was blessed to, when I moved to California, discover that UC Berkeley had 40 volumes. George P. Warwick had 40 volumes. He had edited 40 volumes of slave narratives that were in UC Berkeley's library. 40 volumes. Slaves who had given testimony during the WPA time when Roosevelt hired people to go and interview people who had been former slaves. And I spent a couple of years reading through the words, as I heard the words of our ancestors. I could tell you a whole lot about that, but the main thing you need to know is that in listening to the voices of my ancestors who were African-American slaves, I discovered the wisdom of the ancestors, the words, how they lived, what they thought, what they believed in God, what they believed about hell. Now, what do you think about hell? They say a white man's heaven is a black man's hell. That's what they said. They said hell's right down here on the earth. That's what we live in. We live in hell. They had testimonies. They talked about God. They talked about what happened when the Spirit hits you. They talked about life. They talked about love. They talked about what it meant to live as the people of the blues. Yeah, the people of the blues. Been down so long you don't even know what up looks like. Up ain't even on my mind. What it was like to live through the brutality of chattel slavery and sharecropping, and they gave testimony. They gave testimony. Rowling has a book. You don't have to go through the 40 volumes. The 40 volumes are very difficult to read, but he has a book entitled From Sundown to Sunup. From sunup to sundown, their lives belong to the slave master, but from sundown to sunup, they did what they had to do in order to survive. It's a very, very constructive piece of reading. Another book that you might consult if you want to know, if you really want to know. Maybe you don't want to know, but if you really want to know about what it was like, Edward Baptiste, I've mentioned it before. Edward Baptiste, Baptist, The Half Has Never Been Told. Slavery and the Making of American Capitalism. The half has never been told. Baptiste talks in that book about the fact that the economy of the United States was built on the bodies of Black people. It's not an abstraction. He described what it meant to build an economy on the backs of Black people, to build an economy on the wombs of Black women, to build an economy on the hands and the feet of Black people. He gave great detail to what it meant for Black people to be the ones whose backs and bodies, their bodies. Slavery was not an abstraction. It impacted their bodies. Their bodies. He wrote about that. He wrote about that in that book, The Half Has Not Been Told. Another book that I want to mention, some of you have heard it, we did it in our book club, is Isabel Wilkerson's book, The Warmth of Other Suns. The Warmth of Other Suns, that describes why it is that Black people fled from Alabama and Mississippi and Texas and South Carolina and Georgia, why they fled and went north. When they they migrated because they were fleeing the brutality of Jim Crow. Always remember who you are and always remember where you come from. That was Moses' message to the people. Always remember who brought you. That was Moses' message to the people. That was Mama Lena's message to Walter Lee when he was going off the tracks thinking that money was the end all and go all. Mama Lena said it used to be freedom, but now y'all think it's money. Always remember who you, and that is the message that is reminded. I want to remind us today. It is also the message of that beautiful song that was sung by the choir. The song that was written by James Weldon Johnson and his brother. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory. Stony the road we trod, it was stony. Bitter the chastening rod, the whip felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place where our fathers sighed. I'm telling you today, always remember who you are, where you come from. There are a couple of quick lessons. Number one, your struggle will teach you things that will enable you to survive in times of struggle. When you go through struggle, you will learn things that will help you when you run into trouble and struggle in the present time. When you learn from those who've gone through struggle, you will learn what it takes to survive. When you listen to our ancestors, you'll find out how it is they got over. You'll find out about the faith that enabled them to keep on hoping and to keep on trusting. And then secondly, you will find out that there's a power that goes far beyond the power that is available to you because of your faith, because of your struggle. You'll find out that there's a God who is able to help you to prevail. Now I just want to come to a close quickly by lifting up a testimony. In 1996, I've shared the story before. In 1996, when we decided in 1996 and 97 to start the Imani Community Church, a bunch of us, about 25, 30 of us. We decided to start the Imani Community Church. I had been professor of theology at the seminary in Berkeley for 5, 6 years. I had come there in 1988. And by 1996, I had been there almost 8 years. I had worked for the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail, when you're in the academic world, is tenure. I had worked for tenure. I had paid my dues. I had written 2 books. I taught wonderful classes. I had established a reputation in the academic world. I was well on my way. I was traveling all over the world, to Africa, to Thailand, giving lectures on theology. Oh yeah, that was what I was doing. And in 1996, I left the church by the side of the road, and we decided we were going to start a church. Didn't know where we were going. Well, I had received tenure 2 years before that. I had paid my dues. When I took the first church by the side of the road, I was not tenured. So they didn't seem to have a problem. But by the time I decided to start Imani, the board of directors told me at the seminary that they didn't want their tenured professors pastoring any churches. And they said, you need to make a choice. You decide whether you're going to do the church or whether you're going to remain tenured. And I had a conversation with God. God is the head of my life. And then I had a conversation with Althea. She's the captain. There's God, and then there's Althea. And we decided that we were going to do Imani. And I told him, I said, well, I just want you to know there wasn't nobody in my family ever had tenure. Nobody in my family ever had a PhD. Ain't nobody in my family ever published a book. And my grandmamas didn't have no education. They didn't even go to school. But they taught me that there was a God who was more powerful than tenure, more powerful than money, more powerful than the academy. A God who is able and a God who would take care of me. That's what I told them. And I resigned tenure. I resigned tenure, boldly resigned tenure. My friends were like, you are crazy. You resigned tenure. I said, well, my grandmama said there is a God who rules above. Oh, yes, that there is a God who will keep you. There is a God who will take you through, a God who will help you to prevail. And I resigned tenure and we did Imani. We did Imani. And then when I became the academic dean 5 years later, then they wanted to return me to tenure. They wanted to work it out. And by then I didn't really care. Didn't matter to me because I knew that the life source for me was in the church. The life source, that which inspired me, that which kept me going, was in the church. That's where I learned through that experience what it meant to remember who you are. When you remember who you are, given what we have gone through as a people, we learn that there is a God who is able to provide us the power, the strength, the courage to overcome with God on our side. That's what I learned. And so the song says, lest our feet stray from the God who brought us, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget God. The song says, let's remember, let's return to God, let's remember our faith. Let's remember our faith. A brief testimony, that was my testimony. Listen, Imani, listen. Last Wednesday, we received the deed to 3300 MacArthur Boulevard. The Imani Church, we own 3300 MacArthur Boulevard. God is able, God is powerful. Won't he do it? Yes, he will. God is a powerful God. Listen, now y'all know that I'm a little crazy. That I follow the Gardner C. Taylor rule that says there are sermons everywhere, and I once, you know, you've heard me, if you've been around, you've heard me talk about how cakes speak to me, and when I bake cakes speak to me. I once had a rubber ball. Y'all know what rubber balls look like? Well, I once had a rubber ball. And one day I was bouncing that ball, and that ball said, you know, Pastor Cummings, rubber balls and Christians share something in common. Yeah, I'm a little crazy. So I said to the rubber ball, I said, well, rubber ball, Mr. Rubber Ball, what in the world are you talking about? What possibly could Christians and a rubber ball share? And that rubber ball says, well, when you throw me hard down to the ground, I will bounce back so high. He said, and that's how it is when you're a Christian. You may be down, but you're not out. When you go down, the Lord is going to help you to come back up. When you go down, in fact, when you go down, you're going to come back better, bigger, stronger, higher, because the God you worship and the God who walks with you is the God who will see you through. Yes, I learned from that rubber ball. That rubber ball spoke to me. Now, you can say, Pastor's crazy, but that's all right. I just want you to know that rubber ball gave me a testimony about the God who is able to lead us, the God who is able to keep us from falling, the God who is able to encourage us and give us the strength to keep on keeping on, to say hallelujah anyhow, even when times are difficult, even when there are troubles, even when there are trials, even when there are struggles, just like we're in right now. God said, I am able to keep you from falling. And God will keep you, and God will enable you, and God will give you the power. Yeah. Remember who you are, and remember who you are. When I was a little kid, we used to sing the song, if anybody asks you who you are, you tell them, I'm a child of God. When you're a child of God, with God at your back, it's going to be all right. The Lord will help you to prevail and to overcome. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
Amen.